So what if the government could just change your most fundamental rights? It sounds pretty out there, right? Well, back in 1965, a huge case in India put that very question to the test. This is the story of the Sajjan Singh case, a constitutional showdown that, believe me, still matters a lot today.
To really get what was at stake here, we have to start with a question that gets right to the very heart of how a democracy is supposed to work.
I mean, think about it. The rights you probably take for granted, freedom of speech, equality, the right to life, are they permanent? Are they these unchangeable pillars of society? Or could a government, if it had enough power, just decide to change them? Or maybe even get rid of them altogether? That was the exact question on the table.
And just so we're all on the same page, what are we talking about when we say fundamental rights? Well, these aren't just any old laws. They're the core promises, the guarantees a constitution gives to every single citizen. They're the absolute bedrock the entire legal system is built on.
Okay, so this wasn't just some abstract philosophical debate. Nope. In the mid-60s, this thing became a full-blown battle, right in the courtroom. Let's dive into the legal fight that brought it all to a head.
The case was Sajjan Singh versus the state of Rajasthan. Now, this didn't just pop up out of nowhere. The government had passed something called the 17th Constitutional Amendment, basically to protect its land reform laws from being challenged in court. This directly messed with property rights, which, at the time, were considered a fundamental right. So Sajjan Singh challenged this, essentially asking, hey, wait a minute, does Parliament even have the power to amend a fundamental right in the first place?
So the stage was set. The big question was on the table. Could Parliament amend the Constitution and change the fundamental rights of its own citizens? Let's get right to what India's Supreme Court had to say about it.
And wow, the court's decision was an absolute bombshell. In a ruling that would literally shape Indian law for decades, the Supreme Court declared that no fundamental right is truly permanent. In their view, Parliament's power was supreme.
And here's the kicker. The heart of their ruling was this. Parliament had the authority to change any provision of the Constitution. And just so there was zero confusion, they made it crystal clear, yep, that includes the chapter on fundamental rights.
Whoa. I mean, that is a staggering amount of power to put in the hands of a legislature. So you've got to be asking, how on earth did the court get to that conclusion? Let's unpack their legal logic.
Okay, so the court's entire argument boiled down to this really critical difference between two types of law. On one side, you have ordinary law, which is covered by Article 13. Think of these as your day-to-day laws, and they have one big rule. They cannot violate your fundamental rights. Simple enough. But then you have a constitutional amendment under Article 368, and the court said, this is a totally different beast. It's not just a law. It's like rewriting the entire rulebook of the country.
So here's how their logic played out, step by step. First, Article 13 clearly says any law that infringes on fundamental rights is invalid. Gone. But then, for step 2, the court made a huge call. They decided that a constitutional amendment isn't an ordinary law in that context. So for the final step, they concluded that the shield of Article 13 simply doesn't apply to these big amendments. It was this legal interpretation that blew the doors wide open for Parliament.
So where did they find the authority for all this immense power? The court pointed to one single place, Article 368 of the Constitution. They basically interpreted this as the master key, the one thing that let Parliament change any part of the Constitution without being held back by the protections guaranteed in other articles.
All right, let's bring it all home. We've gone through the case, the shocking verdict, the reasoning behind it, but why are we still talking about a legal case from over half a century ago? What is the final burning question it leaves us with?
Here's the bottom line, the ultimate takeaway from all this. The Sajjan Singh decision powerfully reaffirmed Parliament's authority. It established that the legislature wasn't just a player in the game, it could also rewrite the entire rulebook, including the most sacred rules of all.
And that leaves us with a really deep and, frankly, kind of unsettling final thought. If the one document that's supposed to be the ultimate guardian of our freedoms can be altered by the government of the day, what is our final protection? It's a debate that certainly didn't end in 1965, and it remains one of the most important questions in any democracy.